were starting, actually, all of us, we were in previously in a very popular trash band here in technical trash band here in Bulgaria, very inspired by Nevermore, called Wartime. And we didn't like the name, obviously, and one of us left, so we decided, okay, if we're gonna continue, we're gonna continue under a different name. And it's funny because the name of the drummer is Velizar, my name is Ivan, and the bassist is Antonio. So we just kind of combined, the different names, and we came up with Velian, which is actually the hill of music in ancient Rome. So it has some sort of a connection there.
So guys, you're catching us in the middle of our starting of a conversation. This is Ivan Ivanov from the band Velian, and you guys just learned how they got their name. And how are you doing today? You guys are out in Bulgaria. What's going on in the Bulgarian music scene with you guys today?
Yeah, Bulgarian music scene is struggling because of what's happening across the world. So it's very difficult for everybody. We are a very small market, so we're not of huge interest to big companies. So there aren't any bands signed by major labels in Bulgaria. Everybody is independent, which gives us a lot of creative space, so we can do a lot of things we want. We don't have to obey by any rules, which means that the music we do is the music actually we want to do and the music we love. On the other hand, it's a very poor scene, which I can say probably applies to the whole metal scene in general. But it's not like we have like massive investments in the scene, whatever. So everybody's struggling financially, but we're keeping up because this is what we want to do with our lives, and this is what we have been doing for many years, and we're not planning to abandon it now. So yeah.
Now, I've taken a listen to your music, and you guys are definitely metal. But how would you describe your music to fans that have not heard you, if they haven't come to you to get them to come listen to your music?
Well, we have a lot of mixes into and a lot of influences into our music, and obviously we grew up listening to Paradise Lost and Moonspell, to these bands, and you can hear that Amorphis, and you can hear that in our music. On the other hand, we wanted our music, to be meaningful. So it's very dark and not too heavy though. So we have a lot of light influences. So we have a lot of melodic death metal influences as well that we throw in there. So we have these very romantic parts, and then you have these very heavy parts. But it's actually a big clash of different genres and subgenres. And obviously this comes from what we're singing about too, because part of our lyrics are very related to the romantical stuff. The idea of love, but lost love, something that is out there, but it's out of your grasp. And then on the other hand, we're very influenced by what's happening around the world, and we're very angry about a lot of the things that we see. How people treat nature, how people treat each other, and the wars and everything bad that's going on. So this is a huge inspiration too. So we find the middle road somewhere in between, where we create a world that is inspired by these events, and it's almost like post-apocalyptic world where there is a lot of striving for passion and for love, but unfortunately there is also a lot of sadness and a lot of doom and not much of a hope in there. And we hope that that's not what's coming really towards us in the near future, but it's inspired by a very dark idea of the future. Here we go. Not a very short answer to your question.
Well, and that's so funny because we were talking before we started recording about, we've both been to Wacken, and I think, watching your videos and stuff, the perfect stage for you guys would be like the Wasteland stage, because how they have all the really cool, everything's laid out, and it's kind of like a themed area. And I could see you guys totally up there with that, just rocking out and having a great time. It's like a little steampunkish in that section, so it's kind of different.
Oh, definitely. It's what inspires our outfits as well. Probably you've seen in our videos, and we put a lot of effort in our videos in general. So we have fairly good production side, and because we would like to visualize everything that, and actually on our concerts we also have visualizations that aim at transferring you to that little dark future.
Yeah, and that's cool, because I think along the lines, especially with music, a lot of people visualize what they're hearing and they imagine what it would be like. I know I do. I listen to music and I'm going, oh, I could see this as a video, and you think of what it would be. So it's kind of cool when bands take that extra step and add that extra little piece in there to make the music come together visually as well.
Absolutely. This is the whole point. And we've learned that lesson in Bulgaria. If you want to keep the interest of people, and you were asking about Bulgaria, our scene is relatively new because prior to the beginning of the 90s, we didn't have a metal scene at all, or it was very, very limited by the political regime back then, the communist regime. So after the 90s, when everything was, we didn't have money for equipment, or so the first actually serious bands and serious recordings started coming up at the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. So we were a relatively new scene. We're a small scene, obviously, because Bulgaria is a small country, but I must say a very, very passionate one, and we have a lot of very devoted fans, a lot for our standards, but maybe not too many for German or Swedish or American standards. But hey, different realities.
We're going to change that. We are going to change that. Yes, you have to get with people around the world to start hearing your music and people to start sharing what you're doing, and then people will start coming along. And I think that we have to foster that. I mean, you guys are putting out the music, but for us in media, we need to be taking that chance on the bands that aren't getting noticed. I think that there's a lot of media that wants to connect with mainstream artists, and we want, let's keep our numbers going and be the most popular, but they're losing a lot of the bands along the way that need to be discovered. And
here the question is why you do it. I mean, if you want to do it for popularity, obviously you're not going to deal with Velian or with very small bands from Bulgaria or Romania, but that doesn't mean that there aren't gems there. And I'm not referring to us. I mean, I see a lot of bands here in Bulgaria that have massive potential. And actually, I can make a difference because I've been to a lot of the WACKEN Metal Battles throughout the last 7 or 8 or 9 years. So I've seen, how good bands all over the world are. And I can say we are, doing relatively well, actually, being such a small country. The problem is when you're a small country and your market is small, there isn't a lot of money coming in, and there isn't a lot of interest. And one thing leads to another. There isn't a lot of interest from the media. There isn't a lot of interest from labels. And obviously, this hurts in a way, but it doesn't hurt the club show, and it doesn't hurt your relationship with your fans, which is actually the most important thing. When we go out, we have a decent crowd, and that everybody is enjoying the show, and that after the show everybody is happy, and that they felt that we gave them something.
Well, and I like that you touched on that you spend time at the WACKEN Battle of the Band stage, because that is a huge thing for so many bands around the world. And let me ask you this: have you guys competed in the WACKEN Metal Battle for Bulgaria? Okay.
No, we haven't. We were too close to the organizer, and it wouldn't have been fair.
That's we decided. The hard part.
Yeah, we decided. Okay, instead of participating, I'm just going to watch and learn.
Yeah, and I love the WACKEN Metal Battle. I think it's a really great thing, and there are a few festivals around the world that do something. It's not the battle, but it's something similar, like Sweden Rock does. It's the NEMIS program that brings new music in Sweden, and it brings local bands to their stages while they have their festival going on. So I think it's 8 to 10 bands a year that get a spotlight, and it gets these bands that people locally know, but then you're getting these fans that come from Brazil and South if I can even think straight. It's like I just totally lost train of thought. South Africa. Thank you. There we go. My brain just totally took a blank there. But South Africa, I've talked to fans who've come from all around the world at Sweden Rock, and they would not ever run into these bands had they not had a platform. And so I love, I spent time at the WACKEN Metal Battle stage last time, 2019, and saw bands from all over the world were phenomenal. We guys from LA that were out there from the USA Battle, and we talked to people from all over, and the caliber of the music that's on that stage, any one of those bands could be on a regular WACKEN stage. It just such great music coming out of.
Actually, they would do better. They would do better than the big names, because sometimes when you're very big, you take everything for granted and you don't give 100% of what you can do, and which is very funny. And this will be very quick, but I've seen a lot of huge bands coming into Bulgaria not giving 100%, because we're a small, country. And when you go and see the same band, and actually I won't mention the name of the band, obviously, but I had this opportunity to see a band in Bulgaria. And then 4 days later, I saw them at WACKEN, and they were a completely different band. I tell you, nothing to do with the Bulgarian, with the Bulgarian band.
It's so funny you say that, because I was watching the She Rocks Awards last night, and Lizzie Hale, she was the one that was the host last night, and she was talking earlier in the day with Lindsay Parker. They had an interview, and they were talking about how what the responsibility is for creatives and artists and music, whatever creative you are. And Lizzie said the responsibility for artists is to show up and to, you know, put forth that effort. And she said the same thing. A lot of people don't give their all, and you should give your all. And I think that's really sad when, and I've seen it here myself in Seattle. If bands come through and they play smaller stages than they're used to, and they show up, but they don't really show up. And it's really sad, because fans have worked really hard to earn the whatever paycheck they get, to put that money out to buy a ticket, to come buy the merch, and then they get shafted with a really bad show. And it leaves the fans with a whole different opinion. And people I've talked to before have walked away from bands. And I've done a few bands myself that have done something similar, that I no longer want to connect with them.
Yeah, but that's if you have a critical taste, because most of the people, from what I see, you know, let's say 70 or 80% of the people, they go there for the emotion, because, for example, they've listened to Iron Maiden when they were young, or they've listened to Accept when they were young, and they were, you know, very passionate about them. And then at a certain point now, this brings them back, you know. So, but there are these few critical listeners that are not there just to find your mistakes, but they want to give you a chance. And if you're intelligent, you're going to make the most of it. You know what I mean? So exactly. you give your best, especially when you have these few opportunities to play with big names, etc. Give your best, and, you know, you try to be noticed. And this is how, I mean, if they like you, they do, but at least they're not going to like you because you haven't given 100% of yourself.
Exactly.
Instead, that's what I meant when, you know, very huge bands, then they don't give 100% because they don't have to, first of all. Second of all, because they take fans for granted, which is something that you never ever do, because it comes back to you at a certain point.
It's a funny world, and fans are fickle. Like, they'll be loyal to you, but sometimes those fans, if you slight them once, that's the end for them. And that, you know, and especially with 2020, it's been so hard. And a lot of bands have done a really hard push, you know, for, you know, live streams, or finding a way to online to have an extra income, you know, another way outside of their touring. And some have done it really well and made it really quality. And some have done it like a hard promotion, push, buy, without anything or consideration for their fans. And it's been an interesting new.
Yeah, our approach has been very different this year. And I'm not saying it's right, because everybody knows their own fan base, or they think they do, and they do, you know, the best way to, they try to do their best, you know, in order to reach their to reach their audience. For us, we just try to stay sane throughout this year, because, you know, for all of us in our personal lives, it was very a huge, massive change. We're very sociable people. And, you know, staying close at home led to, at least for me, was a very difficult year, I'd say. And what we did is we had an album prepared that was supposed to come out on February last year, and we kept it. We didn't release it. First of all, because we kind of don't believe really in releasing albums per se. We believe in releasing a lot of singles that will, you know, create a buzz. Release a lot of videos that will create a lot of buzz, and then. For us, it was very difficult because we created this, you know, huge interest. And then when we were supposed to release an album, we couldn't, because the way things function in Bulgaria is the only way for you to pay for your CDs and for the prints and for the merchandise, etc., is to do a promo for the album. So you go live, you play, a lot of your friends and family and you know, all the fans come. You pack the venue if you can, and with this money you actually pay for everything else. So it's, for us, in order to release an album, we have to pay from our own pockets everything, you know, all the expenses. And it was very difficult to make the choice of whether to release it digitally, because sales of CDs are not huge if you're not there and you're not playing. So we are very dependent on live playing, on concerts. If there aren't any concerts, I mean, we can do live streams, whatever. I have done some, but it's not the same. We are very invested in creating this atmosphere with people. And if we don't have the people in front of us, it's not the same. So we can't really communicate correctly with our public. And it's been, with that regard, I'm not saying that this is the right way. Everybody decides what the best way for them is. But for ourselves, We didn't release the album, and we'll release it hopefully this year. We are very proud of it. We think there is great music that we can present. We just don't want to shoot blank bullets, if that makes any sense.
And that's fair. And I think that you're hitting on something that's not just a Bulgarian problem too when it comes to the release, because I've seen a lot of bands that were going to release their albums last year that decided to hold them. There are bands that have been like really pushing, saying, hey, we've got an album coming in, and then just said, we're going to hold it. And I've got other artists that I know that I've been listening to that's saying, I'm not putting anything out until we get shows back. I'm just, we're just going to wait it out. And I mean, they're doing other creative things. Like I know, like you did, you guys put out a video about 6 months ago. So, I mean, you've got things that are coming out and you're keeping that buzz there. And it's definitely different. It's a whole different scene now on how to do things. And I think it's made people get a little bit more creative. But I'm like, I don't know about you. You're probably a little bit the same as me because of how many times you've been to Wacken, but I'm dying for a live show. I'm like, I feel like soul death because I've been going to shows since I was 14 and I've gone to thousands of shows, and live music is where it's at. I mean, it's not just the music, it's the coming in, brothers in arms next to your buddies. And I mean, I was just writing a review of a release party yesterday that I watched and talking about how like everybody in the chat, we were so excited because it's a band we followed for many, many years. And we were just excited for the camaraderie, just to talk to other people about the music that we love. And you go to a show and you might bump into someone you've never met, and it's your best friend for the night because you're sharing old stories from, 20 years back about this band you've seen and how much you love them and things you've seen and things that happened at shows. And I think a lot of us are feeling that it's like this, we're going through this slow death, and then we're going to finally get a rebirth at some point, but people are just really desperate for shows. And I can't wait for them to start back because we need them. It's a mental health check. It's a chance for people to get out and socialize and to connect and see their friends, and for artists to get out and do what they do best. And that's live shows.
Last year, Bulgaria was under a very strict lockdown. So we were absolutely closed. We couldn't go out at a certain point out of our homes. And it was very, very difficult. At a certain point throughout the summer, there was a small window. We managed to play a show, which was in an old warehouse, fabrica stuff, post-apocalyptic thing, where everybody brought, a very cool company here in Bulgaria. They brought a very, very nice equipment. We created this wasteland stage in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
And 2 or 3 bands. So we did play live, and it was one of the best experiences ever, because when you do 2 lives a week or 3, or even some people do even more, at a certain point it becomes the norm, and it becomes routine. But when you haven't done it for a while, there was this passion again, and going in front of people showed up big time, just because there wasn't any live concerts at this particular point. But now everything is down here in Bulgaria up until the summer. So no lives, nothing, just absolute everything is canceled. And I presume most of the clubs, most of the venues that play metal music will probably will go away for good, because they just can't afford not working for 2 years of paying rents. So it's a difficult moment, but it's like that everywhere. So I don't want to whine about it. It's how it is, but it doesn't make it pleasant.
Yeah, and I don't think it's whining. It's the commiseration of, I think that you hit that because worldwide, we're seeing venues that were already struggling closing left and right. And those are the venues that have always been the ones that have fostered the availability for local bands and unknown bands. And it's not the big stadiums that are closing. It's the small venues, the independents, the one that help launch careers. And it's heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking. I know here in the States, we're losing them, and I've heard it all around the world.
Heartbreaking. This is the cradle of independent music. The small venues is where the whole thing lies. It starts from there. If there isn't this place, everything will be stuck with all the famous bands. Nothing bad against them, but you won't have these small independent artists, because you will take 2, 3, 4, 5 years time until everything goes back to where it was, if it ever goes back to where it was.
Well, and you touched that, like, nothing against the big, well-known bands, but I love my independents and I love the lesser knowns. And I had this real passion for discovering new music. I mean, of course I've got my Iron Maiden because I am a Maidenhead through and through, and Priest, you know, I mean, like Priest is what brought me to metal. So they are always going to be there for me, but I still love to hear what new bands are doing. And it could be, I get it here a lot too, that people are like, oh, there's nothing new out there. I mean, it's all been done. And I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of bands doing really great stuff that is unique. It's not, I mean, it's still, you're going to have some similarities, but it's still very unique, and that there's room for these bands to continue making new music.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it prior to the conversation. If you, we're stuck with Spotify, and especially here in Bulgaria, where we don't get access to a lot of physical copies, a lot of physical CDs, we are stuck with Spotify. So, the most of the music comes through that channel. And when I do my playlist on Spotify or Apple, I rarely put, huge names in there, because I've heard that before. I grew up, I'm 40 odd. I grew up with a lot of these huge names, etc. I'm interested in what's happening now around the world, and I can tell you that in my playlist there are a lot of bands that I haven't heard before. Some of these bands I don't know even now. I'm just listening to the music, and it's like, oh, that's cool. I like it, But if you don't want to go that extra mile, just filtering, going through all the hustle of finding new bands is painful. So I can understand people not doing it and just going with what they prefer, because there are so many. I mean, there are so many.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And, I'm the same. There's a little love and hate thing going on with Spotify, because I agree that wholeheartedly that they need to find a way to pay artists better.
Yeah, they paid me $15 for last year, so I'm kind of feeling
lucky now. It's disgusting how little artists get paid. And I think people say, oh, Spotify, and they blame a lot wholly on Spotify, which it's not just Spotify's fault on how it happens. I mean, the labels are involved. They could be more active on what they want if their stuff's going to be on that platforms. But there's also, you've got people loading music every day. Anybody can load something to Spotify. And so they're paying, and you've got all these other people putting new music in there and cheating the system, because they say, oh, you can't cheat the system. You can. They just took down like 750,000 songs that people were buying fake streams. I mean, like they've got to work that out. So that I think Spotify's got to do that, but it's not going to go away. So I agree that people use Spotify. I use it, but I have a professional paid account. I mean, I pay for it because I believe you should pay. And I wish that,
I pay for my account too. Yeah.
I mean, I wish that they would help pay the artists better, but I have a Spotify playlist. We have one for Yesterday's News magazine. And we keep it fresh. We move things in and out, and we have so many relatively unknown artists that are on there. We're always fostering something new, and we kind of space out a little bit. Like, you'll get some like hardcore thrash death metal, you're going to get some symphonic stuff, you're going to get some traditional rock, but it really fosters a chance for fans to find something different. And I think it's important that we have to do that. I mean, we've got Days Rock Radio where we play the mainstream stuff, but not as much as we play the not mainstream stuff. We bring a lot of music in there, and I think there's a lot of people out there. I mean, there's a huge community in media that I work with that people have, like CGCM Radio. They've got their own station, good buddies of mine. You've got people like AMP Reacts that they're talking about music from all around the world, and they take chances on bands that their viewers ask them to do stuff. And so you've got people working on that. There's so many great publications out there that are doing it. Like, people used to shirk blogs for years. Oh, they're just a blogger. But some of these blogs have such massive followings, and it's that small community, because I don't believe bands need 1 million fans. If you're a band and you really want to survive, you need 2,000 to 10,000 diehard fans that love what you're doing. And they're going to be the ones that buy every single thing you put out. They're going to buy your merch. If you ask them, hey, share our song, they're going to share it with everyone. They're going to foster that music to all of their friends. Those are the fans that bands should really be working for, not just, oh, I've got 10 million followers on Spotify. Great. They might have followed you for one thing, but are they listening? Is that helping you in the algorithm? That there's so many different things about that. I mean, because when I look at my weekly stuff that Spotify gives me, like the algorithm generated, I'm always going, do they even know what music I'm listening to? Do they look at the list that we've published out there? Because it's not what we're listening to. And I don't connect with half of what they send me, even though they say our AI is great. It needs to be better.
Nope. Not for metal though.
No.
Not for metal.
No.
I absolutely agree with you. And probably the best way in today's times, back in the day, people were supporting the bands by buying CDs and merchandise. So this is the case today too. But a lot of the unseen but great help to bands is sharing. Sharing the stuff. If they like something, just share it with your friends, because this is the only way for small bands to appear on the radar, especially if we're coming from a place like Bulgaria, where we don't get access to big festivals and to the big venues across Europe. And it has become a little bit sad, how it is, but it is how it is. And you go through all the difficulties because of something you love, because this is an idea that you love, and this is an emotion that you want to share using that form of art. And if this form of art appeals to people, this is the best way to actually, that feeds back to you, that energy that you've given. And it feeds back like multiplied. And really, I don't care if I have we've had literally lives with 15 people, 15 people, for example, in Romania, in a place we haven't been before, and nobody knew about us. So we went there, we appeared, whatever. And because of that, I gave like 110% or 120%, just because I wanted to touch with these people, and because I didn't know them, but I wanted to share my frequency with them. And when it works, it becomes magic that feeds back to you, and it puts sense to everything you're doing.
Yeah,
makes it worth a while.
And I totally agree. Like I'm still somebody who gets the physical medium. My thing is I still love my vinyls. I'm like, I was so like, I went through, but I was, I grew up with vinyls. And then when the vinyls went away, I was like, why did this happen? And then people started getting back into vinyls, and I still love to have my physical medium, and I buy and support my bands. I'm like, look, I'm wearing Striker Metal right now, from Canadian metal band, you have to do that. Your fans are going to buy your stuff if they love you. So I think bands have to do a better job of stepping up on social media and connecting, not just go out, promote, but go in there and talk to your fans and get to know them, bring them to your family. It's because they are your family, whether you want it or not, and you don't like social media. Put some stuff out to connect with your fans. Let them feel something. If they feel, they're going to connect with you. And it's so important to just, it's people have to find that way to connect with those fans, because the Spotify's and stuff are still, they do some, but they're not well enough for the bands that really need it the most.
No, there are algorithms. I mean, what happens every time when you put art together with with mathematics and finances? Art loses. It has always been like that, in time throughout human history, and there is nothing that changes that today, unfortunately. If you want to create independent art that is close to your heart and might not appeal to the majority, so we are not doing pop music. Then
pop music.
But then you have to abide by the rules, and you can't escape from them. You just how it is nowadays. The Matrix is different than what we saw on TV in 1999, but it's still there. We still abide by the rules, and we can't escape from them.
So tell me, for you personally, what were the metal bands that fostered you coming into the metal scene yourself?
Oh, doom metal bands. I was a massive, when I grew up. When I was 9 is when the communist regime fell, and we were from relatively poor family. So my dad bought some stuff from Bulgaria. He went out across Europe to sell it to make some money, and he brought me back because my dad is a massive AC/DC fan and Uriah Heep fan. So he grew up with that music. He was listening it illegally with friends on top of buildings, trying to catch the wave with the radio from Romania and stuff like that. So I was born and bred with hard rock music, and he brought me back some CDs when he came back. So he brought back Led Zeppelin and the stuff that he liked, and he also brought "Jump in the Fire" single by Metallica on a CD. So it was like an eye opener for me. '89. I was a small kid, and I was listening to this massive heavy music. But then, despite that, I liked it a lot. I very quickly moved to the doom metal genre. I don't know why, but it happened. So started listening to a lot of folk metal like Amorphis, the early Tales from the Thousand Lakes, and before that, Carillion Isthmus and Isthmus. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, to the early Amorphis, early Paradise Lost, and this is what brought me to My Dying Bride, and from then it was mainly doom metal up until I discovered Alice in Chains at a certain point, which was
Yeah.
like the Seattle doom metal thing for me. So I started my path musical taste like splitting in towards Alice in Chains, and remained with the doom metal. And it's how it is today. Today, like my path has been split many times, but all these directions are dark.
Yeah.
This is one thing that remains like a common across my music experience. I need to have melody. I need to have beautiful and passionate riffs and songs, and they have to be dark because darkness, like, it's kind of easier for me to understand.
So when
I
you
don't know
say
why is
that,
that. I'm a very merry person, but
with that mix, you have to have the melody and the darkness. When you think of that, what is the number one album you can think of that fits that for you?
Turn Loose the Swans by My Dying Bride.
Nice.
That was the album that like, everybody has their eye openers, their crucibles, when they just everything changes for them, and for me it changed with that album.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how you're saying you guys don't have a ton of festivals and stuff in Bulgaria. I see you guys have played numerous festivals, but you've played with people like Kamelot and Moonspell, Kreator, Elliot. What is it like for you to be out there performing with the bands that you already love, but to be up there on the stage and having that chance with them?
Well, it's mixed. Sometimes it's a great experience because, for example, one of our most favorite bands of all time, that the band that actually united Velian, our musical taste, because everybody from the band has different musical taste, but the common thing is Nevermore, and it has always been Nevermore. You're from Seattle, right?
Yes, I am.
So there you go. Yeah, Seattle band.
Yeah.
For us, that was, for example, Warren Dane, late Warren Dane, great Warren Dane, who passed away unfortunately a couple of years ago. He came to Bulgaria and we played with him on stage, and it was an incredible experience because we got to sit with him for 2 days, partying, chatting, laughing about everything and from one end you see everything that you read on the internet, online, whatever, that just materializes in front of you. So you get to ask a lot of these questions that nobody else knows. And he was a good talker, very willing to talk. However, sometimes with some of the bands, like I won't mention names, we didn't have good experiences. And yeah, and unfortunately, this is what happens. Sometimes they steal your time, or they say, for example, I want to go for dinner earlier. Show starts in 1 hour. Promoter goes crazy. Our slot goes out of the window just because the guy want to meet a girl afterwards, and they don't think about the little bands at all. Some of them do.
Yeah.
So it has been a very mixed experience, and I can go by band by band, but I won't do it because it's not right. But there are some bands that are absolutely great with up and coming bands like us that are doing, the slots before them. But there are bands that really don't give a shit. Sorry about the word, but they really
I love
don't.
that you said that there are bands that steal your time too, because when I was at Wacken the last time in 2019, the band I was there with, the band before us, stole about 5 minutes of their time, and the looks on the guys' faces and how upset they were. And I totally get that, because you only have so much time, and people think that, oh, you're at the festival and you've got all this great amount of time, and your slots are really small unless you're on like the faster or harder stage. Even then, your slots are still fairly small. But to get robbed even of like just 5 minutes of your show can make or break a lot of bands, because you may have like a 25-minute set. So it's a huge deal.
And also, you are in the zone in that particular moment. You want to go out and play in front of people. And, this completely destroys that mental readiness and preparedness to go out and play. And you go and kind of destroys the mood. And the mood is very important for a band. I mean, we need to click on the same frequency in order to be very, very good on stage. Yeah. We need to be in the same mood. When you're nervous and you're pissed off with somebody else, I mean, that this is how concerts fail, at least for us.
Yeah, and then I also think from the fan side of it too is that if you get shorted your time, you may have that one fan who's been following you forever, and they're hoping for that one song, and because you got shorted, one song gets pulled out of your set list, and that's always tough because somebody maybe had that one specific song that you haven't played in 10 years or something, and you decided to throw it in there, and so it sucks when bands do that. But I know bands, it's not always an intentional thing they do, that they're just having such a great time and the fans are reacting and they just want to keep playing. But yeah, that's always an interesting.
We are very lucky because Bulgarian promoters are great and they usually take care of us. We know them. It's a small scene. So we know them very well. And, big up to the WACKEN promoter, BGTSC. They have always stood by us. A lot of other promoters have always stood behind us and have taken our side, when something like that happens. Because this is a secret that nobody will tell you. But sometimes for bands that think they're big, they come to Bulgaria, they will do 200 people, 300 people, which for us, it's relatively okay. Most of the venues are about 300 people anyways. We do that here. So why the hell should I completely ruin my whole experience? And we guarantee the promoter these 300 people, while some of those bands being big, they don't. So, it's a very interesting situation where we have to be, the underdogs. But in terms of what we can bring to the table, we actually aren't. But unfortunately, since the names are big, we have to be. There is no other way. I mean,
and it's funny you say that because there are smaller venues, the independents here we've had that have had bands that are from other countries that have come through that are bigger in their countries, but not so known here. And it was the opening slot support bands that brought the crowd, because I've actually seen bands, and it's the weirdest thing because I spend so much time going to shows in Europe that I love the bands and I'm going to stick around because I know who they are, but my local people don't really know them, but they came out to support their bands. And as soon as the show's over, they just leave. And I've always told people, I'm always razzing my friends when I see them, like, hey, I know who this band is that's playing the headline tonight. Don't leave before their set. Stick around, watch them. But it's always funny to see that when that happens, because you get these bands that are really big and they're coming on, and they're like, yeah, and then they're like, we have zero crowd. Like it's the weirdest thing. So
we as metal musicians, in my opinion, cannot lose dignity.
No.
The fact that we're smaller is not something that I don't want to sacrifice my art, because this is what it is at the end of the day, because of different circumstances. And there are, practices that I don't like, pay-to-play practices, and a lot of these things that, you can do it once if you want to get known, whatever. But getting by doing that diminishes you in a way, at least in my opinion. I might be wrong, but we need to have more dignity as metal musicians and not sacrifice everything just because, for example, somebody big came and told us that no, you don't play. That doesn't mean that you have to enter but still, stand your ground. This is what I do, at least, and I have always done it. I'm proud of my art, and I don't want to sacrifice because something else, somebody else, external circumstances.
That is absolutely true. So do you guys have any new music getting ready to come out? Any new singles coming soon?
Yeah, we have a video ready. It's a lyric video, because nowadays organizing a massive production, it's very difficult for obvious reasons. It's a very cool video. This will probably surprise my bandmates, because we haven't agreed that I'm gonna speak about it, but I will. So
exclusive, hey.
Yeah, so we have an upcoming video. We don't know when we're gonna release it, when we feel it's right. But it's not gonna take. We just can't afford not releasing anything for 1 year. It doesn't work that way. So we need to, and we have it ready. Just a matter of when.
And then you guys have your album ready, and it's just a matter of things shaking up.
Yep.
I mean, it's so hard to say, because I always want to ask you, what do you guys have planned for this year? But it's such a hard thing to do. And I know so many people have tours booked, and they're being optimistic that maybe towards later in the year. But we just saw Glastonbury has just canceled their festival, and that's usually at the end of June. So we're already kind of getting nervous, because there's so many festivals before that it's like, what is that going to do to the rest of the environment? But we have the vaccine.
Well, today our bass player told me that our upcoming show with Clouds, a very cool band, has been canceled. So there you go. This is what I hear every day. One after the other. A lot of our shows from last year, a lot of our shows got canceled. It's not only us; it's everyone. But we were supposed to have last month a show with Biogenesis. This didn't happen, obviously. So a lot of different things. But then other opportunities appear, but they don't appear for this year. This year, we see and we feel that people are scared, promoters are scared, and we don't know how this is going to go. I mean, thinking of all the other people in the industry, sound engineers, tech guys, whatever. I don't know how these guys go by. I really don't. I have a lot of friends. Big up to you guys. I mean, we appreciate your work. Without you, our shows are impossible, and I know it's been very, very hard for you guys. So, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
Yeah, and that's really heartbreaking for me too. Like, I've got so many friends that are sound engineers. They're guys that are out on the road. I mean, even band members. And this is the one thing I think a lot of people don't even realize. A lot of band members, when they're not on tour, they're working as sound engineers. They're doing front of house work. They're out on the road with other bands. Like, I've friends of mine. One of my friends from Hammerfall, he was out doing front of house for King Diamond, and then he had to go back and do other stuff. And so another friend of mine from Deafening came to town to pick up the rest of the tour. Like, it's like, or they swapped. And it's so funny that people just don't realize that, hey, sometimes you should look at that front of house board, because you never know who's on the road. Like, but a lot of people are really hit hard. Like, and I don't know, and it's been a long time. Don't know very many musicians who do their musician work full time. They can't afford to live off of it. And there are so many people who do other jobs. And like myself, I have a day job that thankfully I do, because I lost almost all of my photography work last year, and all of the other work that I do throughout the year. My video work was gone. Everything I had booked got canceled. And I'm, it's a tough thing out there. And I see my friends that are struggling that survive off of being on the road, and they are on the road 8 months out of a year. And we need to do something to help them. And I know around the world that there's a lot of people financially, the governments aren't helping people. And it's really, really heartbreaking to watch so many people that I already know personally, and then other people's stories. And it's worldwide. It's just so much
worldwide,
love,
absolutely.
Total love for all of these guys out there that do this work, that are behind the scenes, that people forget that there's a huge elements behind the scenes. And I think a lot of people, like, I've seen things on social media, they should get real jobs. We lost $30 billion in America, 30 billion just in the USA, just on tour stuff alone, concerts. And I'm sorry, but $30 billion is a lot of money. Like, that's people who actually pay their bills off of money that they've earned.
But hey, when it comes to art and music, there will always be these people that will say, go get a job, and it's very sad for them. Really, I'm not even mad at this. I feel sad about these people that just don't have very limited field of view. I'm feeling lucky because I think both me and you and everybody watching, and all the guys in the industry, it doesn't matter if it's metal or rock music or whatever genre, there are a lot of people that put their hearts out, and they don't deserve what's happening, but it's what it is. We just have to survive. And the stupid thing is, though, that we don't learn, and that will never make for what we've lost, because we had the opportunity to create a better and more solid, stable environment for art, but we didn't. And we paid more attention to money, to interests, to wars that are artificial and that are created because of money and power. And this is something we sing a lot about, because it drives us absolutely crazy, it's the world. We don't learn, unfortunately.
No, the money is the root of all evil, apparently. Okay, so let me ask you, since we don't know what the rest of the year is going to hold, once shows open back up and it's safe to do everything again, are you guys looking to tour outside of Bulgaria? What do you guys want to do next?
We usually go to Romania and Greece, because they're very close. They're neighboring countries. We have some fan base there. Sometimes if we have the option, we're always in discussions with a lot of promoters, because we're kind of lucky, because we've been to Wacken, to many places, and we kind of know good promoters that can help us. However, it's all perspective of finances, because these tours for small bands are something that you have to fund yourself, meaning it comes out of your own pocket.
Pay to play.
Yeah, well, not per se, meaning not I'm not going there and paying for my slot. However, right. I'm taking all my expenses. So driving there, sleeping, whatever comes out of my pocket. And if I can sell merch, yeah, then fine, I can recuperate. But it's never that successful, and it's not as easy as it sounds, obviously. So this has been always the big showstopper for us. We're not that, even though we're in Europe, we're not that close to the center of Europe where everything happens. So it's a lot of expenses, and we have had awesome opportunities. And because of day jobs, we lost them. Actually, one with War Dane, their band invited us for 15 dates with them across Europe, and we just couldn't afford it. We're a poor country, and we just, we want it. We knew it's going to be absolutely awesome, but we couldn't afford it. And, sometimes these opportunities slip, but sometimes other opportunities come. And we always embrace new opportunities, and we try to make the most of them. I can't tell you from now, but in short answer to your question, I haven't forgotten about it.
Oh, no.
I just can't tell you. I don't know.
So if we had no bounds or limits on it, what would be your dream places to hit?
Well, Wacken, obviously, because it's close to my heart. And, playing in Wacken, there is something very special. I've been to festivals all across Europe, and I was standing in front of the crowd on Hellfest when Europe playing, and I was thinking, yeah, it's cool, but it's not Wacken. Even though it's bigger, even though it's shinier, even though there are a lot of fires and lights and coming out. So Wacken is close to my heart. At least I know for many people it might be the other way around. Yeah, definitely the Holy Ground is where we would play with massive pleasure, given the opportunity.
Awesome. I know Wacken is its own world, and I think people have to experience it once. And I've got so many friends here in America that I'm always saying, you need to go to Europe. You need to hit the festival circuit. Do Wacken at least once, do Sweden Rock once. I mean, hit these Hellfest, you download, hit these festivals, go and have that experience, because in America, we don't get those kind of festivals. We have festivals, but they're not like that. People don't camp. People don't stay for days, and people don't roll around in the mud. If it's raining, people are like, I want a refund. So it's kind of the, people don't. I'm like, at Wacken, oh, hey, remember the day that last 2019, I keep wanting to say last year, but we didn't have Wacken in 2020. But you get the rain days and you just show up, and that's just going to be like, you get a pause because there's lightning and everybody has to go shelter somewhere, and then you just come back and you get back at it. Yeah.
Here, probably it's very different, especially in Germany. People are very nice, as you know already. I remember 2014 or 2015, kind of, I'm losing it now. They evacuated 30,000 people because of rain and thunders and whatever. We were there with a buddy of mine, and it was surreal. I mean, there was a guy. It happened in front of us. First day of the festival, a guy comes in with the latest Mercedes that costs 250,000, and comes down from the Mercedes, very nice and spotless and whatever. Comes down, goes to the pit. 4 days later, we see the same guy going back into the Mercedes with a smile about that big, with not even one clean spot across his body, all covered in mud, and with all the, the festival emotion, written on his face. So this is what metal is all about, really, isn't it? It makes us all equal, yes. Because we have a passion that overcomes all differences, right?
It absolutely does. And that's the year I had tickets, and I missed the year because I had gotten a really bad ear infection. And my doctor was like, you absolutely cannot fly with your ear like that. You will rupture your eardrum and you will probably never hear again from that ear. And I'm like, what? Jesus. And so 2 days before, I had to cancel going, and I was devastated. And then I saw all the storms, and I'm like, maybe it was a good thing, but people.
No, it was still cool. it was still perfect. And I have on my YouTube channel, I have a video from, I watch it from time to time just to remember how cool it was. But yeah, but as I said, metal unites, and it's not the slogan that you know, people have used it across the years, but it's true, isn't it? It does, because it's something that is beyond and above our everyday experiences and our routines and everything else. It's a passion. When you strive towards passion, a lot of other things don't matter, like stature, like you know, if you're rich or if you're poor, what country you come from, or it shouldn't, at least. And in Wacken, you can feel that the most out of all festivals.
Absolutely.
And I've been to most of them I've been to most of them in Europe, most of the big ones at least. And Wacken is where you feel right at home.
It is definitely a family at Wacken. I'm in one of the Wacken groups. We talk all the time. It's people just talk. You want to talk about your music and you want to share this experience. You want to reminisce, and it's the camaraderie of the metal community, and that's why I love metal. I mean, aside from the music itself, but the community is family. So yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, thank you for talking metal with me today. It's been a great getting to know you. And guys, find Velian. They are online everywhere. Go check out their videos, stream them on Spotify, help them get into algorithms, and watch for new music to come. And now that we know you've got a new video, definitely keep an eye on their YouTube channel. Make sure you go and subscribe.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, things like that, you put face to our band, and it's absolutely awesome, because we get to be seen by a lot of people that otherwise we wouldn't have had access to. So it's much appreciated. Much love.
Absolutely. I mean, like last year, 2020 kicked me so hard. I was like, it got to the space where I just felt like I couldn't interview. I couldn't talk to anybody. I was tired of writing. The lack of music was devastating. And 2021 is like, okay, let's kick that in the teeth and move on. And let's get back to what we do and regenerize and get out there and help people connect with really great music and great artists. So
awesome decision. Awesome decision. We, at least I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thank you so much, Ivan. And guys, again, Velian, go find them, and we will be chatting with you soon.